Well, good morning. This is Andrew Williams Jr. and another Conversations with Andrew Williams Jr. on this 10-10-2020 weekend with our special guest, Mufaddal Mirza, but also giving special thanks to our hosts, Lady Alicia Hamilton with TRN International News, and our underlying host, the Ed Fu Foundation. Personally, I'm here as a representative of the monarchy of Easy Igbo in Ghana, and also the monarchy of Yaya. So with that, I'm going to begin with a brief presentation to begin our day that's launched by our guest, Mufaddal Mirza, in introducing us to this weekend.
Weekend to SAMS TQLMA blessed weekend, a unique weekend, 10-10-2020 weekend to SAMS TQLMA Global Associates, SMEs, gold miners, farmers, and residents of our planet. From Dr. Mufaddal Mirza, leading SAM's TQLMA global project of providing sustainable income, home ownership, and total quality life to global families led by the mothers of our planet. Our proposal is unique in a way that all mothers will be enrolled in SAM's TQLMA club with one PGC. People's Gold Coin is equivalent to 0.025 gram gold, which is equivalent to 2 Canadian dollars. So everyone can participate. 2 billion mothers plus all the residents of the planet can really become a member for 2 Canadian dollars and enjoy an inflation-free life by converting the paper currency into gold, which is precious, which is indestructible, and which maintains its value. And whenever you need something, you can barter your needs of food, clothing, everything else with a people's gold coin. So that gives you really a medium of living inflation-free total quality life. Now, the reason we can offer 2% discount over London bullion metal wholesale price is that we acquire our gold from our partner refineries in ECOWAS in Africa. And we also purchase gold, bulk gold from, sellers who are in the gold business and who makes money, in doing the gold trading. So we have actually buyers who are foundation buyers who can buy, gold in tons. We also have, buyers who are, in the kilogram kind of a range. For instance, we are working with one Chinese buyer in Hong Kong who needs 500 kilograms gold per month. So we are buyers of that level. And now, we are selling gold to them. And we have dedicated 0.5% of our gold revenue to finance our global project of building SAM's Wheel of Life Farm School in global university campuses first, so that we can train engineers in climate smart agriculture and construction technology, so that the model can be built on all the farms of our world and gold mines, so that hardworking farmers and gold miners can enjoy a good life, and their children can enjoy a good total quality education. And we should be able to provide home to about 70 million refugees and all the people of the world, all the families of the world today who doesn't own a home. So we have the technology to produce the best benchmark climate smart homes at a cost which is comparable or lower to the traditional homes in which people live. So everybody is welcome, all families are welcome, and we are also working with refineries like Harrius Refinery, who can transform the gold waste, recover gold from the waste, and then transform that into bullion for us. So Harrius can do that, and the proposal we are working with Harrius is that all mothers have old jewelries which we can transform into bullion and provide gold and diamonds and other precious stones. So these mothers can also make brand new jewelry in our jewelry department of SAM's Wheel of Life Farm School. So it's a win-win situation for everyone. Everyone can enjoy an extra sustainable income by transforming their savings into gold. And once they invest their savings and park their savings in SAM's Climate Smart Fund, we will use that fund, Climate Smart Fund, to build these SAM's Wheel of Life Farm School in farms, as well as SAM's Energym University Agri-Business Park campuses in the center of these farm schools, so that everyone can enjoy climate smart food produced just in time in our facilities. And it's a value chain, so only the minimal amount of food will be sort of transported from the one location to the other. Otherwise, most of the food which we will produce in our Wheel of Life Farm School will be cooked and consumed by the local families. So that is our model of really fighting COVID-19 by consuming immunity boosting food and by taking herbal medicines which we will be producing in our farms. And it's a mechanism of leading total quality life, and it's a zero risk situation because everybody can participate. Everybody has a $2 Canadian, and if whatever amount of money people have, uh, you know the savings, they cannot really use that savings to start up a business. Now we are making everybody part of this global business, so they can continue doing whatever they are presently doing, but then they can also earn a sustainable income from our project. And then when they are feeling comfortable that they are ready for entrepreneurship, SAM's Climate Smart Fund will also support their entrepreneurial, dreams and the projects they come up with. We will finance those projects also. And we provide the benchmark return on investment, which is 72% of the net profit is given to people who are parking their money in SAM's Climate Smart Fund. We dedicate 7% of our SAM's TQLMA global profit for Gamba Education Fund, and then 21% is being, distributed among the operators of the company. So it's for SAM's TQLMA Global as well as our joint venture partners. So that is our model. It's a win-win situation for everyone. Everybody can participate. It's sort of a zero risk kind of a model, and it's literally a social entrepreneurship whereby everybody benefits and everybody can enjoy an inflation-free total quality life. Join the TQLMA Club and start the entrepreneurial journey and double your income. 10, 10, 20, 20 means that if you invest 10 PGC today in this 10, 10, 20, 20, by the end of year 2020, we will double that income. Basically, your money will be doubled and will give you 100% return, because that's a kind of return we earn through our climate smart food and gold business. So happy 10, 10, 20, 20 weekend, and make this 10, 10, 20, 20, formula the game changer for your family and for yourself. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Well, thank you so much, Mufaddal. That was, I think, a succinct introduction of what we are faced with here. And I do know that we are going to address multiple issues. But before we go forward, I'd like to ask if there are any questions by our audience before we move forward to the next presentation.
I have a question. This is Michael. I wrote down the numbers he was outlining in the model, and it looks like it's something like 0.5% back into the nonprofit space, if you will, from the investment space. And I'm curious about what he sees as the cap rate and the growth rate of the organization that's going to feed back into the not-for-profit space.
0.5%, Michael, is a sort of a startup, a seed capital, which we can utilize for adopting, say, public universities and, doing number of things, because seed capital is definitely required to move forward. So we have kept that space, and, that is for that particular, projects. Wherever there is an institution in need, like a school or a university campus, we use that fund for that. But the majority of the fund, which will be actually going to the SAMS Climate Smart Fund, is a fund which will be actually invested in our, both housing as well as climate smart food value chain. And that is where we are making, bulk of our profits. And it's a very, very profitable venture when we look at it, and when I'm talking about, giving 100 or 110%, annual returns, that is all doable, basically. And the proposal was given to me by one of my associates, who is a gold, expert, basically, a trader. Simply told me, Mufaddal, give me, this amount. 50% of the profits we will give for all charities and everybody else, and 50% is an excellent return on investment to give to the investors. So all the numbers were being crunched, and based on those numbers, then I summarized it like this. Okay, this is really a doable thing, and it is happening actually. These kind of money is being made by the current gold traders, and I know for sure that in the food business, you cannot go wrong if you do it right. Okay, so I mean, everybody needs the food, and the maximum amount of profit gets generated by these restaurants, who actually provide the cooked meal, to people. So when we look at everything like this as a value chain, that, okay, we are not interested in selling food ingredients, we are actually selling the finished products. Okay, the product which is needed by everybody, because everybody needs good food. And if we can serve them cooked meals, that means we are eliminating all kinds of waste from the system. So that's our whole idea. Our idea and Dr. Paul Olivier's concept is to eliminate all kinds of virtual as well as physical waste from the system.
Yeah, but I think my question is more specific to what is the scale of the operation and how does the operation scale? because if the development that's being discussed for Canada has a capitalization cost, it's going to relate to this 0.5% that you outlined as the nonprofit seed capital. So that's why it gets to the scalability of the enterprise. And so I'm curious about your projections of the enterprise. So you talked about $2 per person capitalizing into your model, but you must have some percentage of global population that's going to capitalize in at some rate. And so I'm curious about how that piece of the model emerges. And that was my question. Not about how you can get a return for 74% or 100% or 110% of the total capital. I get that part because there's lots of businesses that are making those kinds of yields. I'm trying to get an understanding for the seed capital to do the projects that this group C4 came together to build that has struggling or has barriers to actually securing the necessary capital to do these innovation projects.
So I think what came out of this particular transaction which I was doing, which is in process in Japan, we have 21 metric ton gold actually in Mitsubishi, Japan. And then we made all the calculations based on that, okay? That, okay, 1 metric ton is being, purchased by one of our big buyers. Okay, so we have 20 metric ton left. And I said, well, I don't want to sell this to the big buyers. We instead sell it to everybody, all SMEs, everybody, So that way we calculate the amount, like $6 million is available immediately as 0.5%. Okay?
Got it.
And the other 3%, we are giving the gold at 2%, which is a very, very good price for everybody. So everybody can put some money in their pocket, okay, when they purchase the gold at 2% discount. And the 3% is available, which we will be putting in, into this SAMS Climate Smart Fund to populate the fund. So that is one way of doing it, okay? And the other mechanism which came about was this, that, okay, Canada is a popular country. All right, and maybe 50,000 engineers and my 50,000 farmers would love to probably make Canada as a second home. Yeah. And when I'm talking about say $5,300 or 5,300 PGC or about 11,000 Canadian dollars from one engineer sponsored by one farmer, it's a pocket change for these farmers, in terms of money. So, this is an excellent value for them also to make Canada as a second home for them. So that's a huge sums of money, available to us.
Yeah, we talked about that before. There's a lot of issues around how those sovereignty relationships of knowledge transfer actually can occur and do occur. And these also are happening in the United States. And they're sensitive about knowledge bleed, they call it, when the intelligentsia comes from Mexico and now is in the United States, and they're not in Mexico doing the work that needs to be done in Mexico. So that's kind of a segue conversation. But I have a better understanding based on your initial transaction in Japan, what kind of scale. So how often are those transactions made? What period of time are you looking at in let's say the year 2020 in the next 4 months, or in 2021? What scale are you looking at?
Currently, I have basically signed a contract of 5,300 metric tons, which we can complete, say, in 2021. So that is a scale of money which will come to us from a gold transaction.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you so much, Mufaddal. I'm going to now segue over to Lloyd Helferty. It's actually Lloyd's initiative that brought us all together to this collaborative. So Lloyd, if you could unmute yourself and take 10 minutes to address the issues that you have in mind. Lloyd Helferty.
Okay, sure. Well, I've been working I guess, for the last few years, since probably the first presentation I gave for the Climate Smart Food program and ecosystem that we had been discussing within Science for Peace Community Sustainability Working Group, probably going all the way back to 2015, so something like 5 years, as we had been developing this program. And I've had these conversations with Mufaddal for many years, as it relates to what we wanted to achieve. And at first it was sort of related to how to create the sort of markets for biochar. So I was involved with the Canadian Biochar Initiative initially as a startup. We were trying to figure out what can be done to create markets for this stuff, because, well, I'm in Canada. We have fairly good soils, pretty full of carbon. We're not a tropical country, and biochar can be produced here, but our soil need it because they already have fairly high carbon content. Well, where do we need it? These biochar solutions are in tropical countries, mostly degraded soils. But we had many companies that had solutions. We were attempting to create a domestic market as well for these solutions. But nobody was considering how to create the markets. They were just looking at sort of what's out there already, trying to sell it to farmers, let's say, who say we don't really need this stuff. So we wanted to create a mechanism that would actually create markets for these products. So we developed this Climate Smart Food program and protocols and for soils, and a whole supply chain initiative, essentially, for what we were calling and branding Climate Smart Food. Of course, it's moved way beyond the soil-based only production systems, the traditional farms, to now talking about vertical agriculture, aquaponics, and all these integrated systems. The Wheel of Life farm that, for instance, Dr. Paul Olivier has been developing in Vietnam, the solar roof system that Richard Nelson has been developing through the PodNet cooperative, these sort of controlled environment growing systems, which can also be certified under the Climate Smart Food program. Different protocols than the soil-based, obviously, but we had originally in this whole climate smart certification program and system with the soil-based, specifically looking at regenerative organic food action landscapes and how we can certify those to be climate smart. So we were talking, for instance, with the folks in the regenerative agriculture movement, went to Montreal as an example, with farmers in Ontario, farmers across Canada, all the way to Saskatchewan and Alberta, farmers around the world who were interested in this concept. I presented this at the Harvard, a big Harvard event, I believe in 2018, and I presented this at a big agricultural fair for several days in Taiwan. I presented it here to a few groups in Toronto area, farmers up in sort of central Ontario. We had a lot of discussions about developing a protocol for Canada for this whole production and supply chain ecosystem that would support, at the time, the sort of biochar industry in Canada. Of course, biochar never really took off as something, because programs like this got place. We can be similar types of protocols to other regenerative food production solutions. So the idea now is to adopt parts of that original program, because the original program was actually designed to support the implementation of the solutions to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And that was actually parcel of the original protocols for soil-based agricultural production systems and regenerative climate smart. So we borrowed the term climate smart originally from the FAO, and they were proposing and promoting this so-called climate smart agriculture in Africa at the time. I was working part-time supporting an organization in Africa called the Climate Smart Ag Youth Network at that time, and we were trying to bring this concept of climate smart or regenerative climate smart agriculture to the youth of Africa. At that time, it was again a conversation between the youth and their support for this whole concept of climate smart agriculture, where we wanted to bring in supply chain management concepts and get as local as possible, promoting the local production and manufacturing and distribution of these foods within the communities. So now at the point, I think, where we can start to say, can we build this same type of certification system? So if you think about organic food, organic farms get certified, and then all the food that's produced by an organic farm is recognized as being organic, all the way down to the consumer, whether it's on the menu of a food service company or in your supermarket or wherever that organic food is sold. It's recognized by the consumer, that's organic food. The same paradigm we would use within the climate smart food production and supply chain ecosystem all the way to the consumer, where we could now recognize that a producer of climate smart food, certified climate smart food, would be doing essentially two things. They would be attempting to implement solutions to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, whatever they're doing. Well, one or more of those 17 goals, whether they're supporting their gender equality within their workforce on their farm, or whatever they might want to do.
In these last 2 minutes, Lloyd, you can speak specifically to this project right now today.
Yeah, so essentially, I was going to say the other aspect being that we want to try to achieve drawdown. So drawdown being the reversal of climate change, and so that's why we use the term climate smart in this case. So specifically on these projects, what we'd like to do is, in terms of developing these, what we call proof of concept projects, the POC projects, like Richard Nelson is trying to develop with his solar roof building demonstration projects, and hopefully working with Mufaddal, would be to also develop the digital and other backbone supports that are required to create this whole supply chain management system, to recognize and have, I guess you could say, confidence in the climate smart food protocols and supply chains, so that consumers can know for sure that when they purchase climate smart food, those producers are actually supporting the Sustainable Development Goals at a local level within their business, their communities. And they have confidence that it's not greenwash, it's something that's actually happening, because we can whatever they're reporting, we can verify it through whether it's blockchain or other kinds of verification systems, where we can have more of a certainty that what they're actually doing is supporting people and supporting the earth and supporting the actual implementation of these solutions at the local level, wherever they are, whatever they're doing. So that's in a nutshell what we'd like to do is also work with the people who are creating these proof of concept projects to also build that supply chain ecosystem that will allow us to scale this whole program worldwide eventually. So I think that ends.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to briefly, on the screen, I've shared with you the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that you were mentioning. The projects that we're dealing with now are focused on food, of course, which is Sustainable Development Goal number 2. But of course, all the goals are related. So number 1 is no more poverty. Number 3 is well-being and good health. So I do want to commend, again, everything we're doing here that does have implications on the global scale as well as the local scale. Michael Rendler, I know your time is challenged, so I'd like to ask if you could briefly make your 10-minute presentation, and then Rich Nelson will come to you. But first, are there any questions for Lloyd before I move forward? Are there any questions for Lloyd? Please raise your hand or just speak out.
Hi, it's Joan. Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Sorry,
Joan.
Sorry I was late. So Lloyd, I just wanted to, at the end, you mentioned that the project being proof of concept. Is this a proof of concept project, or we already have the proof of concept? We're implementing it in a larger scale.
Well, yeah, it's not been done. I've tried to work with, for instance, Energym University partners in the past. We had actually extensive conversations with both Mufaddal and with folks in Africa a few years back. I'd say a year and a half ago. There was one of Bill Sacindi's associates in New York who was working with us very closely, actually ended up going to Africa, traveled to countries in Africa, trying to see if we could raise the funds to actually implement this protocols and the systems over there. At that time, it never happened. There was never any financing to make it happen. So we've never done any project.
So is it okay if I make a comment, and it won't be a question, we can maybe address it as we go along? So my response to that would be that shouldn't we have like a one project to have the proof of concept and then start to scale it toward others? That would be my huge concern.
Absolutely. Actually, this is part of the reason why I had originally created or tried to work with a gentleman by the name of Brian Hart earlier this year to create something we called the Collaborative Tree Planting Project. These conversations and create, again, a proof of concept of, for instance, solar roof project, a regenerative farm, because at the time, Brian was already putting together a network of regenerative or sustainable farmers. And he said, well, I want to do biochar projects and I want to do forestry projects. And we want to focus on these aquaponic systems and the food production for the homeless people that I'm housing at my property. Can we move forward with this? I'm very interested in this climate smart food thing. Can we create a project and we can actually involve all the farmers in the entire county in this whole project that never again got off the ground because of the Corona crisis. I mean, it was a partnership actually with the military at the time.
Lloyd,
but of course,
if I could maybe just also make a comment here. Is that all right, Andrew?
Mm-hmm. As long as it's on point, yes.
Yes, on point about POC. Proof of concept is a language from my team.
Richard, Richard, I ask you to wait to make your presentation. You'll be so please, if you could be so kind.
Yes.
I have a quick question for
Yes,
Lloyd.
go ahead, Aubrey.
Okay, Lloyd, have you considered while you implement the technical part, have you considered the human touch, the human aspect, the interaction between, one party versus another party?
What do you, your question?
Because,
what does it
all we talk
mean,
about is
interaction?
technology, how technology can make people, you see, we can have a robot cook, right? Cook for us, right? But, that's talk to machine, like a Google Nest Mini, right? You talk to the machine, hey, Google, but I think that technology should serve the people, but rather to replace, like make a, robot human, right? But,
I think I understand.
Yeah.
I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And absolutely. I mean, this is a human project. In the sense, what we're not doing is supporting technologies specifically. I love what Richard's doing and what Richard has developed, but I'm a technologist. But I don't believe in technology because technology can be used for good or for bad.
That's right.
I always give the example of a hammer. A hammer can be used to build a house, or it can be used to smash your head open. It just depends what you're using the hammer for. It's just a tool.
Right.
So technologies are just tools.
That's right.
We need to use the technologies for good, which means we need to set goals on what we want to achieve the SDGs. Okay, what are we trying to achieve? But it is for people. It is for the better outcomes that we all want to achieve, hopefully leaving nobody behind, which is, again, part and parcel of the SDGs, which is why to embed the SDGs within the protocols. That's the purpose of the protocols, the purpose of the program.
Well, at that point, and Aubrey, thank you so much for your question. I think it's now a time to segue into Michael Rendler, if you would, Michael, because this addresses the underlying ecosystem of the interaction of the humans after all. So Michael Rendler, could you please step up to make your presentation?
Can you guys hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Is that okay?
Of course, Michael.
All right.
The floor is yours.
All right. I'm gonna share the screen here. And I'm gonna bring up this document, I hope. You never know how these things are gonna behave on the internet, correct? So I think you guys can see that okay?
We can see it, but yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk just briefly about what this concept is called VCAP, which is acronym VCAP, standing for Virtual Community Action Planning. It's a curriculum, and people say they understand it, they don't understand it. Without really having the curriculum, which is a 40-hour explanation course, which is broken into 8 experiences over 8 weeks, and each week represents 4 hours of workshop and 1 hour of demonstration. It's very difficult for you to understand what the concepts are and how the concepts work. But the premise of the VCAP is these systemic problems require a systemic solution. And systemic means system. And that gets to something called interdependencies. And interdependencies are why we are not able to address the 15 sustainability development guidelines, because we have partitioned each one of these as separated. For example, poverty. Poverty is not isolated from the social responsibility, the collective understanding. So this curriculum that we're going to go through, I have 10 minutes to do this, so it's very rushed. And I say to myself every time I rush something, I'm not going to rush things.
Well,
but it's
in that case, Michael, take the time to make the presentation, regardless of the time.
So to do this, we want to make sure that we understand what each of these 8 components are and what they're intended to do. And it's predicated on a technology that's not part of the common voice. And the common voice means how people look at problem solving. And at the end of the day, it's about neighborhoods or groups solving the problem. So what I see happening is these SMEs, these experts continuously come to the table with the solution. And what this is about bringing science into the community and looking at the community as the collective voice, as the knowledge base, to actually understand and deliver the solution. And what happened is we put a very top organizational structure in our educational environment, in our financial environment. And at the end of this, we've gotten to a very large degradation of our environment. So this first conversation that I want to have is, do you understand how the data is kept and what the concepts are? And the outcome is, what are we missing in this value proposition? So if we start to conduct a legitimate conversation, once we understand how this data is managed and the data is structured, what do the people really care about? What is their value propositions? But do they really believe that's what it means? So in Los Angeles, where this was originally developed, we've broken this problem into these parcels, and these parcels then are land value, and the land value is then marked. And this is not so completely different than what Mufaddal is talking about with gold. So now we set a value proposition on our properties, but those value propositions on our properties have to do with how these, what I call industrialized communities, actually start to look and operate. And so we build tools now to allow us to start to look at some of those relationships. And that fabric of neighborhood now is no longer sustainable. And this is not one city, these are in all the cities across the United States. So the week 1 curriculum asks them to look at this larger fabric relationship of our city. Week 2 starts talking about how does the infrastructure, utility infrastructure specifically support that proposition. And then this gets into all of the related technologies of energy, water, sanitation, stormwater, telecommunication. And this piece is the piece where it becomes extremely SME. And once you move the whole conversation outside of the community, they become the victims. They become the ones that are perpetrated this, what was talked about earlier, this technology proposition. And so what we want to do is we want to make a thorough understanding in what's called a transparent and accountable methodology. We want to really be able to say, just like Wikipedia has a collective process, our physical built environment should have a collective process, and that collective process should take place in a virtual space, just like Wikipedia is doing with language. And sharing that concept, when we talk about getting to carbon denutralization, or we talk about getting to building net zero, we actually understand what it means to bring a building to net zero. We actually understand what Lloyd is talking about when we talk about the supply chain management. We actually understand what embedded carbon means in our production cycle as we create things. And this conversation is the conversation that has to be in the community, because the community is the one that's going to do the implementation. And in the end, they're the operators. So if you look at this carefully, they're the ones who run the system. So if the system can be localized like nature does, then the system's going to get closer to sustainability. And so this idea of looking at how do we build a village, how do we build a community, how do we build a campus, is at the core of what VCAP is asking. We're asking, can we build a community that understands this idea of our infrastructure? And so each of these systems, water systems, sewer systems, even the sanitation system, these are all processes that then create what's called closed loop. And so getting a city block that has 20 properties on it to be self-contained or closed loop is a whole process of transforming from what it is to what it could be. And to do that transitional plan, you need to do an educational plan first, not a technology plan, not a proposal, but an educational plan. So I'm going to repeat myself. VCAP is a curriculum. A curriculum means a set of experiences, and through those experiences, you have a common understanding. This is called a framework. So this framework consists of 8-week curriculum. This is the second week of the curriculum looking at this. So this is the outcome of the second week, that now they understand this interdependency between the stormwater system, the power system, the utility systems, the waste management system, and the supply chain for energy. And this is not just a solar panel installation, it's to really understand at the conclusion what the energy density means within a building or within a product, even a product that you consume, such as food, which in today's standard is a manufactured product. This next part starts talking about the visual environment and the object modeling. And this gets to, can we build an actual collective environment? Can we actually build a collective model? And so now we're in deployment in about 4 different cities now across the United States, looking at what's called the fabric. And I've mentioned this before, each of our neighborhoods across the United States, into Canada, into Mexico, over to Pakistan, around to Africa, all of these spaces have context. And this regional context deals with the weather systems as well. So what we want them to do is, we don't want to grab containers and drop containers, because these have cultural implications. So this chapter and the next chapter look at 2 concepts. One's called cultural iconography, and the other is called cultural exchange, because what happens is the value proposition is actually built in the neighborhood. So building typologies means something. These have the big box store that we see on every corner. These concepts mean something to those communities, what we would call the marketplace, what we call the school, what we call the hospital, what we call the library. These concepts are concepts that then allow us to understand what our environment is and how we can actually build, this is called the walkability maps. So getting to really understand mobility is to understand accessibility. Accessibility means for us to be able to actually secure resources, process these resources according to our community's value proposition. So there's externalities, there's internalities, trying to connect those together so that these become what are called healthy communities, has to do with decarbonization. has to do with the accessibility, has to do with the walkability. These then require a systems mentality. So the next piece of the curriculum is to actually start to look at natural systems and what natural systems are. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to say, in a pure environment without the Homo sapien, we actually could have a natural system. And what does that look like? How do you actually start to look at this biological model? How do we act on it? And a hotspot is a place where there's a high level of biodiversity. And in that biodiversity, that richness is unique for certain areas. So understanding what this environmental construct is, we see these images all the time with climate change in a state of catastrophe, but there's an eco balance that's going on, and understanding that eco balance in this information technology, in this data rich space that actually allows us to understand our community in these constructs. So this feature system, so what we've done in this is on the biodiversity model and what a biodiversity model means. And what we have in terms of an obligation, in terms of the preservation of these hotspots around the United States and the richness of this system, that we really didn't have anything much to do with it. Meaning these are biological mechanisms that have been 2 to 5 billion years of evolutionary process of selection towards what's called optimization. And now in the Anthropocene, we're challenging a system that has manifested itself in this spectacular array of complexity, sophistication, and beauty that we are now challenging with a very simple-minded approach to how we're going to rectify rather than glorify this relationship. And I think that that's the term why it's not just a measurement, it's actually a value proposition. So as we go down here and we look at measuring things, valuing things, and finally designing things. And designing is what I do, is who I am, trained in design, trained as an architect. And I believe those sensibilities everybody has. And to allow those sensibilities to actually be manifest and valued in terms of how we augment our environment is critical in our process. And this is why the VCAP as a curriculum is very important for us to be able to catalyze what we would call the collective voice. So if I think of a compound, or I think of a campus, or I think of a center, then I'm going to think about the people who are going to participate in that. And my point of departure is the inclusion of a legitimate narrative. Do we have a legitimate narrative on the ground that the people are speaking and are able to genuinely participate in? And so this brings me to week number 6, which is system dynamics. System dynamics, I'm using a tool to get to understand this. It's called Net Logo. And Net Logo is an application that shows complexity and what complexity means. And these ideas of being able to do what's called agent-based modeling is very, very critical to this conceptualization of you, individual, as a participant in a dynamic infrastructure. And that means that your voice matters, not that you go to the ballot box, make one decision, and the rest is up to somebody else. This is a participatory process. This is a participatory representation. So VCAP says things are interconnected, interdependent, and dependent on a collective understanding and participation. And to get that understanding and participation, they have to go through a curriculum. They have to have a set of common experiences. So this is built on a 4,000 person network. In a 4,000 person network, which is approximately a neighborhood council, which may, and I'm going to show you a map here in a minute of what one of those looks like. This neighborhood council, then of 4,000 people, then has a voice into how our neighborhood, how our community actually evolves. Me as a participant inside of that community and how this operates in a systemic relationship. So when you bring concepts like net zero, or you bring concepts like smart food or sustainable climate smart food, that they actually understand what climate is. They understand what supply chain means. They understand what system design is. And this is all part of the construct and participating. So it's not a lecture, it's a participatory environment predicated on their actual neighborhoods. So these concepts are concepts that then are part of their neighborhood. So that's number 6. And this is an example here that I think is important, that then shows you how these start to align and how this community becomes what's called collaborative. Collaboratory means that they are involved in an exploration or meaning. And these are fundamental human traits that we need to make sure are embedded in our process of transforming our society and transforming our community. And at the conclusion of this, I'm just going to read this very quickly here. Alignments between these two requirements is necessary to see the extent of diversity and use of these types of requirements for healthy community activity. And that in itself is a crux of what we gathered the VCAP curriculum. Week 6, and then week 7 is how do you actually communicate this? And this is where we are today. This webinar, if you will, that we're putting together talks about how do we exchange information? How do we share this? It says existing data and constructed data. So how do I put my information back into the system so that the system actually then gets modified and feel participatory in building this model? So that's the curriculum. And then week 8 are the projects. Unless you have a framework, you have no context to look at a solution. And this is what's wrong in the VCAP model with most of what's going on, is that there's not an inclusive process. There's not a legitimate data model, and there's not a methodology of some type of collective discussion in an open forum like Andrew's preparing today, that we can actually discuss and understand what it is that's going on. Here you got 5 minutes. We have time for 2 questions. All the webinars are rushed. There's too many people to ask questions. We don't have follow-up information. It's not running like a wiki. And a wiki is a constant improvement platform. A constant improvement platform is what I said nature's been using for a long time. So what I want to do next is I just want to show you very quickly what something like this looks like, okay? So something like this applied. So I probably went a little bit past my time here, but this is an implementation of VCAP. And so what I'm going to do is, this is the overall framework of the study. This is South Los Angeles. And what we've done is that mandala, if you will, up in the left corner, I'm going to zoom into that. And that's what I just showed you. That's the framework conversation. Those are the 8 components that make up the VCAP curriculum. So if I zoom in here to actual size, then we're going to see, okay, how does that actually connect in terms of a data system? So this is a whole systemic process. I showed you those 8 inner rings is the curriculum, and that curriculum is the cultural activities, the cultural typologies, the infrastructure, the land. The ring outside, the next ring out, are the representational environment. These are the maps, the cartography, the imaging, the analytics, the animation, the diagrams that then start to form an understanding about this. The next piece out from that are the components of the ecology, and then a systems approach to those. The outer ring is the compression coming back in. That has to do with understanding career pathways and career mechanisms. And this has to do with what are called CTEs, and I have a whole interconnectedness to the CTEs with the SDGs. And so now we've connected the SDGs and the CTEs to show that when you take an ecological framework and you operate with an ecological framework through a data model, you then start to, let me make this a little bit bigger here, you then start to get an understanding for this process of us being able to move data sets across information systems into these categories to actually augment through our network of interdependencies and interconnectedness. So what we've done here is we've then shown that all of these systems have to be interdependent into one infrastructure. And then this is an example here in South Los Angeles, where we've now taken this area that's very sparse in terms of green space. And this is an actual map to scale of all of the buildings that are in South Los Angeles. And those green towers, if you will, are starting to simulate chapter 4 and chapter 3, the cultural centers. And if I go over here to look at the model, you can see what is happening to Los Angeles. And this is not just some algorithm we ran. This is actually done with LiDAR. This is legitimate information. And these are the layer systems that then start to make up this community. And so now when I want to discuss this community watts, I can actually then take that information and start to parse that information in relationship. So that map that you're looking at right now is looking at children that are under the age of 13 and adult males under 13 is the light blue, and adult males over 40 are the dark blue. And what this starts to show you is they've already segmented out human behavior. This would, if it was a normal ecological system, all of this would be uniform in color. But by looking at this, you start to understand that through public housing in the United States, we've separated our populations. And as to build these communities and restore these communities, we have to think about those hotspots, and within those hotspots, how we actually are going to maintain in these villages the genuine biodiversity of the village. And that concept has to do with type of people, and age and sex, identity are very important concepts that have to do with perception. And this brings us to the people first. The people have to be able to participate in the discussion in a legitimate way. And the way they can participate is through understanding, and understanding happens through education. Thank you, Andrew.
No, thank you very much, Michael. Mufaddal, I do want to address how what I believe your vision is for Pakistan can leapfrog the constraints that Michael has just described you happening in the United States, much as in Kenya, they've been able to leapfrog technology by not having to deal with the hardwired wiring data centers, et cetera. But I do want to first let Carla Napper, she had her hand up. I'd like for her first to have her question. And Richard, after these questions, we'll get to your presentation. But Carla Napper, could you unmute yourself, please, and ask your question?
Oh, I just wanted to really just say how impressed I was with the level of detail the strategic plan laid it out in a way that was very palatable. My question, though, is, you know, on the education of this, you know, there are different levels of comprehension on some of these concepts. And the question is, how will you know if the way in which this is being delivered is a way that is accomplishing what it is that you want to accomplish? I heard you say that it would be sort of an active participation. So, for example, in a practical way, I'll refer to the area where I want to start working. It's an urban area that's gentrifying. It's a good thing. But there are multiple socioeconomic factors in that area that you have to know about before you go into this education piece, because everyone isn't on the same level. So how do you approach knowing that what you're doing is effective? Or how do you know that what you're doing is effective? What kind of measure are you using to gauge that?
Michael, I'll let you answer that, but first let me say for Mufaddal, Mufaddal, all these questions, they speak directly, I think, to the objective that you're trying to accomplish. As I understand it, the root outcome of this is to engage those engineers and architects and students, and to engage them in such a way that we deliver this model city as a replica that can be duplicated throughout the world. But I'll let Michael, I'll let you reply to that, and then ask any other questions.
So said this at the last meeting that we had. There's municipalities that have jurisdiction, and in that jurisdiction, they need to use processes. And so the question specifically is, how do you measure your effectiveness of being able to influence this municipality to understand and do business this way? The municipality that has the jurisdiction, where's this information? You start to force a dialogue that now does not exist. And this was Obama's open data model concept. He's the one who said we need transparency through the government and accountability, measurability. And with that, we then can do science and research at the middle school level. Those are two concepts directly out of the Obama administration that this is a continuation of. So that's how you measure this, meaning, can the community build the map? And if the data is not available to the community, then they're not going to be able to build the map. And that's the situation that we're in most of our urban cores across America, and certainly in many, many areas like Puerto Rico, like Mexico, probably Pakistan. I'm sure Canada has the same issues.
Thank you, Michael. Any other questions?
I'd actually like to sort of follow up on that and make that conversation because, well, where I live, for instance, here in Thornhill, I've been involved in politics. I actually ran for the Green Party many years ago. I'm not a politician, but didn't do too well. But one of the conversations, as an example, with the community groups in where I am, was they were at the time putting up a bunch of cell towers. The cell phone companies, I mean, this was sort of early days of cell phones, and they were getting faster and faster. There were concerns, and actually this is reflected in what Mufaddal was talking about, these 5G proof buildings. There were concerns about the sort of the amount of, but they had no clue where these cell phone towers were being. So they had to actually go around and create community committees to kind of search their neighborhood to find them and figure out where these things were being installed by the companies that were putting up these towers. And then they could then go to the municipal council and say, no, we don't want a tower next to the school because that's a health hazard potentially. Without that open data available to the community members, what's in their community? They were fairly powerless. So I just wanted to make that point because I've seen it in my own community.
Thank you, Mufaddal. I wanted to again address this to you specifically because I may have done us a disservice by including an audience and a preponderance from Western civilizations, because the scenarios will be different in each part of the world. Composition. But Mufaddal, I hope what you're learning is that we can in fact adapt these solutions to like a blank sheet, so to speak, as I understand it, from what you're working with in terms of land. But I do want to hope that you do have some insights yourself, Mufaddal, on what you've heard so far, and then we'll go into Richard Nelson's presentation. Any comments, Mufaddal?
Yes, I think what I learned from Michael is this, that we have current scenarios everywhere in the world. Most of them look similar. But idea now is this, that we actually build an ideal community, okay, no constraints at all. And we say, okay, we want to build this community. It could be a sort of a small community or a university campus, like Urbana-Champaign type of a campus. And then it's a plain sheet of paper. We put everything in place, which is ideal, so that people can see a working model, how a climate smart town should look like. So that is the objective. So I have in Pakistan, like I have 875 acre site, which is a piece of paper, and we can put everything we want in that particular site. Now, the other thing which I think Michael mentioned was this course, which I would like to make it a mandatory course for my Gemba program. When these engineers go out and start building these, these ideal communities, then they should really understand each and every angle of the, the community model which we are trying to build. So this VCAP course could be a mandatory course for all these engineers, and then they can now go ahead after getting the training. And basically it's a global executive MBA program, meaning that whatever you are learning, you are applying it just in time. So we are talking about waiting until you graduate. Okay, so you learn today, you apply today, and then you continually learn. And that's how the continual improvement model works. Okay, whatever we know currently, everybody's wisdom will be applied, and we apply all of it together, and then, move forward. I also wanted to ask, answer to Joanne's question about these three inventors we have in our group today. One is Dr. Paul Olivier and Ken Telford in Vietnam. And, Richard is here with us. Richard has made up that, okay, all these models which we are talking about, these are not theoretical or conceptual model. They are actually working models, okay? Okay? These are practical concepts which is already practiced. Now, what I have done is this, that all these concepts gets integrated now into a school. So it's a Wheel of Life Farm school where all these things are being done. From a preschool to PhD kind of students will be able to now, experience all of it. So they are doing it, basically. So my contribution is to get these best technologies, which has been developed by the inventors, integrated into a school. Okay, and then it becomes like I think a university in UK, they developed this concept that, you should not be really admitting students into a university which are not really prepared, for the university level. So they started doing, building schools in the university campus so that, people can study from school to high school level at the same standard. And then, it's a sort of a transparent kind of inclusion of those students in university. So, the performance and the level of education is maintained. So this Wheel of Life school, which we have developed, is actually with that intention, that we want to really provide that top quality education right from preschool to high school. And then, these people will be, introduced into a university, and depending on the level they want to go to, they can even get a PhD.
Well, thank you so much, Mufaddal. I'd like to ask you too to understand that we're on two separate tracks. One track is from now to the end of the year, what we can accomplish and demonstrate to the world. Mm-hmm. I would like to get your commitment that we're going to look beyond 2020 and look at the decade of bio, which is 2021 through 2030. If we do that, then we'll have an opportunity over the 10-year period of time to actually roll out what it is that you envision now. But my commitment to the people on this call is that by the time we get through this year, we'll have a demonstrable model that we can demonstrate. So with that, I do want to introduce now Richard Nelson, and then Aubrey Zang, if you're available, I'd like to introduce you to then. Are there any other questions before Richard gets started? Okay, Mr. Nelson, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. What a great conversation. I'd like to start maybe with a little comments and just confirmation about some of the information that we've received today. I've been involved in some community planning, on the periphery of community, engagement. Keith Alexander and the what did they call the Chevron, Chevron system of engagement with communities. And so I appreciate what Michael's doing in terms of capturing and creating a systematic approach, to these efforts, which should be everywhere, every community. And the problem is, of course, that the people who can do it or teach it or guide it, are far and few between. And I would say that, most universities are actually not teaching these methodologies, and the methodologies are critical. Without the methodology, you really have a slow progress. And of course, now we can have big data. We can capture this information, share it. A lot of people are afraid of big data. But, we're global. we are a global village, right? We are a global community. Also, to comment also about that we could have these kind of sessions with, you know, and silo, you know, that we'd have a Western team and an Eastern team or an African teams. And I think that this coming together is a very positive thing. And the, you know, the cross fertilization of ideas and cultures is important to what we need to do. Now, in terms of, you know, how communities can actually transform themselves, because I think that is our purpose. And we also recognize that we do not have a long time to effectuate, you know, real transformation, and it cannot be small pockets of examples. And we have many of those. There are many eco-villages. I have visited so many around the world, you know, in my travels, and they're all looking to be sustainable, organic, off-grid, real communities of people sharing, you know, people coming together with heart. I see that in Mufaddal's, you know, objectives, and we'll see that in any indigenous communities as well. You know, when we connect and work with any indigenous and Aboriginal people, you know, in the Western world, we're a product of colonial powers and plantation economies and all kind of, you know, dominating nature, dominating people. So, you know, we're at a disadvantage in terms of where we're at right now. We're isolated from nature. This is a fact. You know, we have our disconnect from each other, which is, you know, communities have been already dismantled by, you know, a sort of a socialization process, turning us into consumers. So now we have to all become more producers, you know, have a producer economy, as I would like to call it, in which we regain our sense of sovereignty over our lives, you know, our sense that we don't have control anymore of our lives because we're so dependent on a supply chain. So then we've had discussion about supply chain, you know, today in the conversation. And in many ways it's very attractive, you know, for innovation to try to attach itself to a supply chain. But, you know, if you're an innovator and that supply chain is going to be disrupted, that supply chain will stomp on you and prevent you from implementing true innovation, because that supply chain is exploiting the people. It is depending on a consumerist, you know, structure. So as we innovate, you know, my principal goal is to break the supply chain. So, you know, when we have discussion about how we fit the supply chain, for me, I'm a bit of an outlier. So I'll say that right, you know, from the beginning. As an inventor, I suppose, you know, that comes with the territory. So if you can forgive me for, you know, having that, you know, potential impact. And then also a comment from Lloyd about, you know, tools can be used as for good or for bad. I think that technology is mostly feared today, because technology has been appropriated by military, by our sort of warfare economy. And most of what we see in technology is actually designed in some ways to be destructive. So, you know, sometimes on the surface it looks positive, but if you look a little bit deeper, someone is suffering as we implement the technology. Oftentimes, like we have our concerns about 5G. Yes, we're polluting the atmosphere, which as we evolved had none of that radiation. And now people don't realize how intense that radiation is. So we have people who are being called conspiracy theorists because they're concerned about something invisible, something that the corporations introduce to make money without any conscious, you know, sort of, is this really good for people? The same thing is happening in food. So, you know, as we come back into, you know, I would say my turf sort of thing is the food. And I've chosen, to focus on food, although my inventions are about controlled environment for producing food. So, to get more into what's under, like the core of my activity is about creating the buildings and creating the climate control, even though the outcome is most important is food. So how did that all come about? I've always had this intuitive understanding of we could call it greenhouses, any kind of indoor growing. And I've also, from my earliest approach to this, felt that natural light is the key. We have a lot of people talking about lamps, people focused on lamp energy. This is no doubt one of the almost like criminal diversions of people's thinking and universities' focus and money investment as well, because there is no way in which life, should be sustained by other than sunlight. Man-made is always an effort to monetize. We love to with artificial fertilizers, synthetic fertilizer, when we know that these are incomplete and cannot replicate. We think we solve food problems by tampering with the code of life. And what we're doing is we're corrupting that code of life. And the corruption is like any computer program, right? If you don't really know what you're doing and you just go in and you tamper with some code, there's unending ripple effects that will make that ineffective and destructive. So we have to be applying science and technology very carefully in today's modern, capabilities as compared to where we were even, decades ago. But our consciousness seems not to be up to the challenge of differentiating, how to use the tool. So as you said, Lloyd, any tool can be damaging or it could be constructive. You could build a building with a hammer, sure. So it is very constructive. I think that I would like to put my technology in a category of technology that Buckminster described as livingry. He coined the word, and it has been adopted to some extent, but livingry is a man-made tool that has only the effect of increasing life. In other words, can we conceive of such things? Well, we live in a world so full of hurt and damage and destruction that it's hard to think about that. I have wondered sometimes if liquid bubbles, my invention for insulation, could ever be utilized for bad, for someone. What could you do with this thing that would be really damaging? I like to think of my buildings as living structures, right? That is the concept that we're aiming for. Living a structure that is at home in nature, that could stand like a tree in the middle of the forest and would be indistinguishable, that Aboriginal people would love, that anyone whose heart is open would immediately fall in love with it and say, wow, what a space. Now, would it look like anything we've ever built? Maybe not. Culturally, adaptations, we do have to be sensitive, of course. Yet at the same time, we need a great transition. And I could just say that in architecture, what we have in our architecture is strong towers and high walls. And our homes are a barrier to some, some people say, oh, you can come through the walls at night. You can walk through bubbles. There's no hard surface here. Is it truly a safe space? But of course, that assumes that people want to do harm. And I think we have to also put that aside. If we're always assuming there's an enemy, if we're always assuming someone's out there to do harm to us, then we're in that frame of mind, fearful frame of mind. This is the frame of mind in which we're exploited. So we have to be courageous enough to, with the stick, sticks and stones won't my bones. I'm doing a little, anyway. But so yes, a structure that is fabric and is a soft skin. And I like the word skin. The envelope of the building or the canopy. So the structure looks like a tree, as I mentioned, and it has a canopy and it has an enclosure, yes, with these transparent fabric materials. Fabrics are very much ancient technology, and yet we have modern embodiments of the technology, and these are available and ready to deploy, and I have been using them for 4 years. In fact, in my lifetime, I've worked with the companies developing this fabric. I went, asked them, can you create transparent fabric?
Richard.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Any questions?
Are there any questions before we move on to Aubrey's presentation?
Yes, Michael. I'd like to thank Richard for, thinking large and bringing some of these concepts into the narrative, especially soft structures, inflatable structures. These concepts that he's talking about, they're really well researched in terms of the human sensibility. And NASA is doing a lot of research for what these ideas are that Richard's so cavalierly putting out there. And so I think it's important when you think of village, you think of space, you think of building, you really have to think clearly about this interface between the natural system and the man-made system. And it's not trivial, believe me. This is a very sensitive interface, and a lot of, I believe what Richard's talking about, the insensibility or the inhumanity that we see out there is a product of the construction of our physical environment. So when you talk about building these things, how do you, what was asked earlier, how do you measure this sensibility within our population? So I think it's really good that this team takes that language very, very seriously. So I want to put that out there.
Thank you so much, Michael. Part of the reason for allowing everyone for 10 minutes of whatever they want to bring to the table is to get these diverse perspectives into the conversation. Now, this is our 4th weekly meeting. We do intend to, as we move forward in the rest of the year, to focus in and finalize the outcome we're trying to accomplish. But it's so critically important, I think, for this team to feel the unity that's here amongst ourselves. So if there are any other questions, and if not, I'll move on to Aubrey. Mufaddal, do you have a statement or a question?
I have a question. Sorry, it's Joan. I had a question.
Okay, please.
Me?
Yes.
Okay,
Joan,
great. Hi.
right
Thank
ahead.
you. Sorry. It's a really good point that you just made about the outcome. If we could almost identify what outcome we want and build around that to get there, because no one's going to disagree with any, at least I'm not going to disagree with any of the concepts that's presented. They're all
typically, these are small. They typically would be at universities or schools, and they would engage the community, and they would demonstrate innovation, if we want to. I mean, obviously they could be projects that are not particularly innovative, but if they do include solar, that would bring a certain element of innovation. And it is an element that is ready for this kind of broad deployment, because yes, we've built lots of these projects. The technology is mature, and it's for 10 times less effort. And so Solar Roof falls in that category. So, and when we implement it, what it does is also brings hope that when we see straight line projections that things aren't going to work out, that we must always be open to game changers. The game changers do change the calculation. They enter into Michael's, modeling, and the modeling changes so radically that what we are perceiving as a hopeless downward spiral becomes an opportunity. The downward spiral is if we don't change. The upward spiral is if we take action. And one of the worst cases is, yes, we do nothing. So we can do more of the same, right? Which is the downward spiral. We can do nothing, which we might hold, our position for a time. But what we really need to do is start to bring everyone to the table. And as I said, as an innovator, as a disruptor, it's hard to put that out there that you've got that solution. And of course, it needs to be tested. And I'm looking for worldwide, testing. So multiple POC projects, all with the same small, effective platform for testing.
Statement to make.
I just wanted to make a point that the most important people today are professors and students currently studying in the university campuses. Again, we should be focusing on providing them the climate smart food, okay, and the best kind of an environment so that they become that I don't want these students to really work very hard. And after doing that, work for somebody who is not intelligent enough to really utilize their capabilities. So what we are talking about in this GAMBA and Climate Smart Entrepreneurship Program is this, that we want to transform these high performance engineers, professors, and innovators into entrepreneurs. Okay, so entrepreneurship is at the heart of everything. And in order to do that, we want to make sure that we physically actually take care of their body with climate smart, immunity boosting food so that their mind can function in the best possible way. And that is the reason what we want to do is this, that we want to start building this model. We call it a climate smart entrepreneurship department, where we build this 110 home or 110 rooms, basically a structure there, so that that particular Wheel of Life Farm School provides food to every student and faculty members there, and it becomes a model for everybody to study also. And then after getting the education here, after actually building these models in a university campus, then these GAMBA students will automatically go out and start duplicating these in the farms. So we want to do this with agility so that now these self-sustaining communities for homeless and refugees can be built in parallel. So we don't want to go into a sequential mode. We want them to build these in university campuses with agility, utilizing the agile engineering and all the best technologies which are available to us. And then these models can then be duplicated out in the global farms. So we have the human asset and engineers to get trained first and then go out and start building it.
Well, thank you, Lloyd. I'm going to let you make your comment. I do want to say, Mufaddal, that I do, in fact, believe that entrepreneurship is what Aubrey Zang is doing. As you know, he has the greenhouse already in his backyard.
Aubrey.
But he's Aubrey. Thank you. But he's intending. Well, Aubrey, let me. Yeah, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah.
But Lloyd, you had a question, and then I'll let Aubrey address that. Thank you. Lloyd, you had a question?
I was actually going to say, backtracking quite a bit. I guess one of the things I can mention, actually, just kind of ideas and building something ideal. These could be satellite campuses, not necessarily built, let's say, on a physical existing university campus. But I think the University of Guelph has a great model in that they build a satellite campus far away from their main campus that can be utilized by the professors and the students and whatever. But the actual point I wanted to talk about was what Richard was mentioning around sort of the social interactions we have, and like people not feeling safe in a transparent building, let's say. that can be ripped open with a knife. But I think from my experience and sort of what I've learned, especially interacting with my own sister, who is a biologist, was that humans have evolved over, I mean, pre-written history, coming out of Africa, obviously. But we are, and I believe we are a species that is an edge of forest species. We love living around the edge of the forests. We're not a, let's say, a savanna species. We're not a mountain species. I believe we are an edge of forest species, and we are a cliff species. And this is actually what my sister wrote her thesis in university. We are a cliff species. We are literally cavemen. That's where we evolved. We love our caves. We recreate our caves in our built environments. We are living in caves. We have reproduced the cave environment we evolved in. That's why we have these small little buildings made of concrete, made of what looks like concrete, drywall, for instance. We've recreated our cave environments. This is what we love. We love living next to the forest, on the edge of the forest, in our caves, with our mountains behind us and our vistas in front. We love like, why do people get cottages? Because they can see out front. There's the forest behind them. This is our ideal environment. We love this. And we're trying to reproduce that. Everywhere we build our cities, we're trying to reproduce the caves that we evolved in. So I think there's that mentality. It's going to be really difficult to recreate something where we have, let's say, a transparent city where everybody can see everybody and what everybody's doing.
I'd love to see.
We want to build that.
I'd love to see that thesis paper. You know, if it's available, that'd be.
I have no idea. I mean, this was like 25 years ago.
Oh, really?
My sister wrote this.
Well, due to our time constraints, I would like to ask Aubrey if you could make your presentation now, Aubrey, and then we'll.
Okay. Yeah. How much time do I have?
At least 10 minutes.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I'm so excited, I don't want to introduce myself because you can just go to parapod.com, check the post, and every post I have a brief introduction of myself. So I like just focus on what I do and how I started, Basically, I started by having this idea is of I want to grow my own food. See, I started from there. So I started to build a greenhouse, just buy the existing, traditional greenhouses for $100, right? And then I set up at the backyard, and it's at that time we rent the house, right? So I want to test some idea to be able to use the sun, the solar energy, because I work for a solar company. They are using the Japanese technology. Basically, they have a solar thermal. When we build a house, we incorporate this solar thermal, collection, storage, and right in the beginning. Right on the drawing board, right? But anyway, that's the, so that's why. So I constantly having this mindset of using, the sun, right? So that's why, when I connect with Richard Nelson, I instantly, a kindle that fire, within me, because I'm thinking along that line. But I have one missing point is the bubbles, right? The liquid bubbles, because the liquid bubble play double role at least, right? It insulate and also capture the solar thermal energy, So yeah, and the other thing is, as I learned from Richard about this, solar roof technology, I know this person, and through him, I got introduced here. I see that so many people are, basically thinking about the same thing, right? How we can, use technology as the tool and then connect people together. So as a collective, human being, the body of human being, that we can make a better world, and then in this world, people interact, right? People, enjoy interacting, learning from each other and sharing from each other, and then, it's just the human aspect, right? So yeah, that's why I feel that. So just actually yesterday we come up with another idea. It's tied up to our own this parapod thing, but it basically to be able to have something that connect people. So well, we're going to talk about that as we develop that product. Just a tiny little thing that make it easy for people to connect to each other. So anyway, so I like to add one thing that is the solar roof technology. That the moment I learned about this, I completely absorb everything. Then I have this something is such a simple thing, right? Such a genius way of implementing the basic copy from nature, right? It's just how the atmosphere is working, right? Take the thermal energy in and then keep it, right? Keep it inside so we're warm, right? And we're not like other planet that is when the sun comes, then it's so hot, right? No one can live there, right? Not even the the microorganism, right? But when there's no sun, it's freezing cold, right? It's almost to the absolute temperature, right? It's minus 100 or something. You know what I mean? So the reason we have this Earth, we don't need to go to Mars. We don't need to go to Mars. Somebody may against me on that point. We just focus on this Earth, the perfect Earth, the atmosphere, everything built for us, right? And it's we could, and if we destroy it, right, then we're gonna end up having war, right? So the conflict between China. I'm from China, right? The China and the United States. So we don't want that to happen, right? Because if human beings act the collective group of people, we do something about it, and starting from growing my own food, right? Starting to use the technology that has been developed a long time ago, so that's my how I see it. So the moment I learned about the solar roof technology, I want to use it. Okay, I want to use it for myself, for my family, even start a company. To as an entrepreneur, right? To promote this. We're willing to even teach people to do DIY. Not just to make money, right? Just actually, to share. This will change everything. How we do things, right? So that's my my fire. You can see I speak very fast because I have this passion. I see that this could be the starting point, and then as we learn about this and learn other things, we can rethink how we build a better environment, a better human society, right? Then within it we share. It's transparency. It's not a problem. I just set up a camera. I keep it open 24 hours. Because that's okay, right? because we are all open, we are all the same in fact, right? There's something you don't want, I don't want people to see, but you see in some area you don't want to see, right? But we have a lot to share, a lot to, once we create that kind of a, peaceful environment, then you don't have to worry about people breaking in, even breaking in your heart protected, house, right? So I had experience, people come in, but he didn't break in, he asked for help, right? I was scared, he because he was on, appeared to be on drug, but I thought I would be attacked. No, he didn't. He just gave me a bottle of milk. Someone spray the hot copper, juice on me. I need to a bottle of milk. So I give him a bottle of milk. He just poured the bottle of milk over his head outside my house, and then he left. He said, "Thank you for helping me." You see, I was shocked, I feared actually, because I don't know what he's trying to do, right? But he just want to ask help. See, a lot of time, just want to ask help. Once I don't have a car, I want someone, driving through me. If they can stop and help me get what I want to go, that'd be best, right? But do you get that help? No, a lot of time we don't get the help that we truly need. Everybody care about their own self, right? They're so selfish. They're so isolated in themselves. They don't open themselves, open up, right? And see and perceive, oh, that person is just like me. So I feel, they, getting involved with this group, and I learned a lot, along the way, and I learned to, listen to, in the beginning, I thought, oh, no, just focus on solar roofs, nothing else, because so passionate about this. But then I see, oh yeah, I need to listen to others, right? So I think, through interaction, then we can appreciate each other, right? And understand each other. We can even break the barrier, break the wall, break the conflict, Even I'm praying that even the World War III, they won't take place. Although there's a possibility will take place soon, probably sooner than we expect. If we don't do something positive, right? We don't do something right, then eventually another World War III has to happen, because that's how, that's how, people do, right? They want to just use power to take over land and take over even supremacy, over, on the technology. You see, China is doing fast, right? So everybody's trying to, but I see from Richard Nelson invention is we can do low tech. We can start from low tech, and once we get the low tech ready and get the people ready, then we can slowly and add the high tech and use it properly, not to kill, but to bring people into a loving environment, create a loving environment. Everybody is happy, and even make the people, always we have to say no, that alike, attract alike. We cannot say it's uniform. No, it's not uniform. The people only interact with those who have the same capacity, on the same level, right? But at the same time, we have the heart to embrace all, right? I can love my cat, right? I can, whatever, you know what I mean? So that we create that oneness that everyone is craving for, So yeah, anyway, I'm so happy to come here and share my passion. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Aubrey. You're not only welcome, but you're at home. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew, for setting this up. Yeah.
So Joan Kerr has a presentation, but are there any comments or statements about what Aubrey just shared? Now's that time. Then Joan Kerr, the floor is yours.
Andrew, this is Michael. Sorry, I couldn't get it off mute fast enough.
Yes, you did. Go ahead.
Okay. So I went to first, Aubrey, thank you so much for your presentation and your passion. And it's very interesting. You have a PhD in chemistry, which I found on your website. So
Yeah,
as well as your
chemistry,
humbleness,
yeah.
as well as your humbleness. So this idea of being able to take the product to proof of concept, as Richard has said, and what that means maybe. I'm curious about these different climates. Saskatchewan, this idea of being able where there's actually very low level of radiation per se, and how this kind of technology can be utilized in climates where maybe 2 months of the year there's no sun at all. How do you see that like being part of this deployment? Because the temperatures and the solar radiations are really different in different locations.
Yeah, what you are asking actually is what we are, when I work for the solar company, we talk about this, right? That's one of the concern, right? But after I got my hand injured, I actually keep watching what they're doing. They are using vacuum solar tubes. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with this, right? And they have the data, to prove that even you have like no sun, right? You have completely cloudy weather, and they can using the solar vacuum tube, because then you have zero loss, right? When you capture the solar thermal energy, you have zero loss because you have vacuum tube, to prevent any teeny bit of leakage, right? So they can achieve still very high temperature. So I mean, I'm sure Richard is is more experienced and is the expert on this. But I like to just add my point. The point is we can have other means if we truly need other supplementary source, heat source. We can do that, right? We don't need to use gas. We do not need to use electricity. There is other means, and it's also solar based, right? Based on the free energy, right? So yeah, that's something I'd like to add. Yeah, I'm sure Richard
can. Maybe I give a quick plan on that. We do have a super insulation, and of course, like in Norway, they used 40 inches of bubble insulation, and they were using lamps, in winter, of course, which you would use to extend the day so short. And they found, like at minus 20 Celsius, right, that using kind of a overheating situation, and so effectively, the bubbles are the key. It's always the loads. We reduce the heating cooling load first. Then there's the issue of how do you respond to the remaining load, right? There's always a remaining load.
I think, not to interrupt you, Richard, but I think I didn't communicate well. I'm talking about the photosynthesis of growing the plants. And you say we can have the lights in, but that's where it wasn't as much heating and cooling as it was the photosynthesis process.
Yeah, you definitely need lamps in the far north, right? And in, of course, above the use the lamps, you take and generate electricity. So it's sort of like taking the solar gain of the summer, the excess, and what you can convert into a few store and carry that over and use to generate electricity. And so we use the fuel cells. We use the mass cell fuel cells. 50% convert.
So perhaps you'll have an opportunity soon to help.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to say what a great conversation we're having. So, and it's a lot more defined, and I think we're getting there. Pretty exciting as well. So, and understanding a lot more what one's doing and how it integrates. So I just want to say overall, our project is more about people, the end users, the homeowners, and community. So I just want to say that first of all, and it's the Smart Victory Garden. Actually, it's a Canadian Victory Garden we first started, and it's more focused on any other way, because one will feel like part of the process and being empowered. So that's a tall call, but I think if we have to start somewhere. And we think that using the Victory Garden traditional model is a good one, and updating it as we have to include engagement with the old global citizenship, sustainable agriculture, climate smart principles, climate smart agriculture principles, the Victory Garden as a whole, and this whole idea of harvesting, preserving, and storing is a big thing for food. A lot of people are talking about growing food, but we're also talking about how countries that don't have the weather of the northern countries. The Victory Garden does include entrepreneur, mostly on market gardens. So we have a really nice market garden project that we're doing for villages. And we've created something called the Victory Garden Ambassadors based on local community categories that I just mentioned. But there has to be an economic component to all of the, if it's a project. And more importantly, we're creating the website. That's why our website is not done, where people can share ideas and wisdom and knowledge. Instead of always have to look it up themselves, they can go to the platform and it becomes a resource center for learning about the Victory Garden. And one of the most important part of the Victory Garden, why it's different from other models, other than what I just said, it has different components, why I like it, is that it teaches you to eat, to grow and eat the food that provides your daily nutrient requirement for nutrition. That's why we love it. It's because that's what it's actually about. I mean, you can grow food you like, which we encourage, but to identify the foods that have the vitamins and minerals that you need is what the Victory Garden is actually about. So we promote that. Like I said, it's have an environment component, which is technology, off-grid solutions, conserving the sustainable development goals, and social inclusion, which means that it's not just about who is the community leaders, but how is everyone else invited and being able to be aware of the program. And the end of that is that next year, I'll announce it here, we're launching our new magazine called Victory Garden Living, to share had from our own tree garden, because it started with us doing an actual tree garden. fascinating organization, Foundation for Building Sustainable Communities, is that we've donated over 64,000 pounds of food in 11 years to the food bank. That's fresh vegetables to the food bank. We've engaged 1.6 million people online for our projects that we've done for the last 17 years. And we've trained 1,700 youth, as Lloyd was part of that too, for the SDGs in Toronto, Oshawa. We were directly involved in those two. And we will continue with that program, obviously under FBSC, but and we've had a lot of what I call leaders sponsorship, you know, the Ministry of Environment, Heritage Canada, Veterans Affairs, Government of Canada, the Oshawa Centre, City of Oshawa, the Royal Canadian Legions. We have partnerships with all of them, or by sponsoring with monetary sponsorship and or donations. So I think when, and just yesterday, today's Sunday, so just on Friday, I spoke with another utility big one that contacted us and said they love what we're doing and would like to be a sponsor. And we didn't even contact them, they contacted us. But they love the whole idea that we've done this community engagement and we don't veer away from small business or government. We include everyone because we think everyone has a role in community development. So I'm just going to stop there and just point out a few things. I think one of the things that we had to address was issues that we have for Mufaddal. And I would just like to say that, first of all, I like what this meeting is about and that we're all sharing our ideas. I'm always asking questions around organizations and how we can function well, but I think that we're getting there. So I'm going to kind of leave that. But it would be really nice to have a written paper, even if it's a one-pager that says, this is the objective, this is what we're doing, so that when we are talking, that we can ask specific questions as opposed to the solutions that we're offering to get there, because no one's going to disagree with any of the philosophies that we're all having. We're all wanting to make it a better, peaceful world. So in this project, how do we achieve that? So I think I took less than 10 minutes, but I just wanted to point out a few things about what we're doing. I have more, but I don't want to take up any more time. Thanks.
I have a quick question.
Go right ahead.
Yeah. What kind of system you use? You use the traditional, the soil-based growth system, or just aquaponic, or hydroponic?
So no, we work with organizations that do that and other people, but when at our garden, we had a greenhouse that was, but we planted it in the ground as well as container gardening using traditional methods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
But we do want to promote, going forward, 2020, we want to promote other ways of growing, such as aquaponics, hydroponics, etc.
And you
Joan,
realize also the, can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
And
Go ahead,
because the traditional greenhouse is one layer, right?
Right.
You consider, like a surviving, pass through the winter, right?
Right.
To be able to grow food in the winter time. See, that's my point. I want to grow food out there, even in the winter time, right?
Right. So we have two approaches to this. One, we promote growing food for the summer to eat fresh vegetables, as well as preserving and canning. And the second is that we really want to promote the extended growing seasons, such as greenhousing.
In that case, double layer, the insulation, that all those things, should be considered.
I have a quick question for Joanne. Joanne, how many sites, which we have available in your network of this Victory Gardens, where we can sort of integrate our Wheel of Life Farm School technologies, basically? Because all the things which we are trying to do, I think you are doing it in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of education, in terms of everything else. But if like you mentioned, Tanzania as one of the countries, in Africa, in East Africa, which is closer to Uganda. So you would like to probably get a site out there, which is, in your organization with your people already working there, as well as the other sites which you have where we can really, looking at the site, integrate our Wheel of Life Farm School in that project.
Well, for sure. I mean, like, I think what this group is trying to do is have a comprehensive, holistic approach, and I really love it. And so, absolutely, we've been thinking about how do we, and I mean, I do volunteer work with IEEE as well, the Institute for Engineers, and I have been involved with that organization for 11 years. So yes, we would love to have, the whole idea of the Victory Garden is that each location identifies what it is that they want to do. I mean, obviously they're going to grow food, but they have a specific function, so a specific element that they want to focus on. So for example, in Canada, the Prince Edward County Project would love, I think Richard has spoken with Brian as well, and I know that Lloyd has as well. They want to do greenhousing as well as growing food, but they're in Tanzania, they started with identifying health. And so we developed a plan with them around growing the food for addressing a specific problem, which was blindness. And we packaged it in health and well-being. And then the second phase was equity, to employ women. And then the third phase was to employ youth, because they all had to be taught, right? And so that project is really, really functioning well. It's making money, very little money, but it's paying for, even though it's in Tanzania, it's there are other weather issues that, pests and not rain, but the lack of rain, things like that. But the pest is a big issue. So Tanzania, for example, if they want to have a greenhouse and they have a chicken farm, they want to create a chicken farm. So again, to create economic development. So we work with the program with those. Thanks.
I have a comment, it's basically, Joan, about how communities all over the world have these constraints and their food systems are failing. So we're having tens of millions of people who are becoming actually to, relocate. Situations are pretty extreme, even in wealthy Western country like California, where we see, huge loss of production because of water constraints. We have fires, we have heat. I know people living in California who used to have vegetable gardens through the summer, and now they just stop. It's like they can't, be out in the garden. Actually, it's so darn hot. So we have all these constraints, and what we don't have, the agriculture universities are really frozen in a filling mode. We know that their whole supposition is producing food with monocrops, with mechanization, vast mechanization. We forget how big this mechanization is. It's over 5 billion hectares around the world. And so that all takes oil to run, right? All the tractors and all the mechanization. And people say, well, we could do it, with organic method. But we then kind of think about that kind of romantically, that suddenly everyone can be out producing food because the labor component is there, right? Don't forget the mechanization replaces what we used to have, kind of human slavery, right? To produce the grains and so on. So, so we need breakthrough. So I come back to that 10 times, 10 times result for 10 times less effort as well. And inputs, right? Because the inputs are super critical at this time. So I'd like to give you numbers, a couple of numbers. When we're dealing in grains, we're getting about 0.1 of pounds per foot per year. Okay, it says a number. That's productivity from grains. As you go into production of, let's say, organic vegetables in the field, field production, like Whole Foods, has suppliers that produce vast amount of food, and they're mechanized, but they're using organic method as far as that's regulated. You can get about 1 pound per square foot per year, let's say, producing leafy vegetables and in the field. When you go into the greenhouse, with current greenhouses, right, you'll push that up to 10 pounds. So greenhouse production is much more productive than field production. It's well demonstrated. When you come into a year-round vertical farm of my type of concept, right, and which is related to other vertical farming and other intensive food, you can push that up to 100 pounds, possibly. Certainly to 50. That's 5 times, but actually we can probably go quite a bit higher than that. And these are not speculative, right? These are real hard numbers. If you have master growers in inner cities, doing their food programs, right? There's quite a few of examples of that. And that's your gardens, right? And they're able to produce that sometimes as much as 10 pounds per square foot. That's with quite a bit of inputs, inputs, right? Management and time. So you could push that up from what would be a field culture getting 1 pound and push it up to around 10 pounds with really quality management input. So these are basically the parameters. The question is, how do we replace the calories that are going to fail, representing 70% of the global calories for people? And as we go forward in the next 10, 20 years, and as the population increases towards 10 billion, like adding at least another 2 billion people, and not only that, another at least 1 billion urbanized people, so maybe 3 billion going into cities, who are reducing the production on the land, which is self-sufficient growers, who do put intensive management in and grow for their family and close community. This is a traditional culture, like in Africa, still existing. But that's changing. So they will be pushed into the urban centers. And the reason is that the agribusiness, to keep their business operating, are looking for another 1 billion hectares. And they're going to find that in Africa and in South America, in terms of deforesting the Amazon and the Congo and other areas, and it's happening. And they're looking for that further 1 billion acres because they're losing also about 1 billion acres, even to stand still. So it's very much like the fossil energy business. Why do they look for unconventional fossil energy? That's like deep ocean, and Siberian and fracking and all these unconventional energy, because they're running out of fossil energy. We have passed peak production. We keep, I think people lose the thread of the story. Why we're in alternate energy? Why was I starting alternate energy in the 80s? And the people around us, because they were already projecting when the fossil energy would run out. That's why. Now we think a lot about CO2 and climate change. It's almost become the more driving thing. But these are the big parameters, and nobody's modeling it.
Yeah, sure.
Well, thank you so much, Richard. We do appreciate that. We do have a couple of other guests that need to speak. If there are any other questions.
Basically is a version of the concepts that we have as Richard, Michael, and Lloyd have introduced. And as Joan had indicated, is there a objective as far as the integration of the various concepts? I know that the initial target was to get to just the these. That's where, and we need to evolve from this concept of closed communities, and I am for myself, and everybody else fend for themselves. The food supplies, guaranteeing food supplies. Here in Puerto Rico, for example, during the hurricane, we were disconnected. And now with the COVID-19, we were also disconnected. So we can't depend on other sources than those that we have locally. Puerto Rico is a small island, but it has a lot of natural resources, land that hasn't been developed for the past 40 years. It was a great producer of sugarcane and other products. And since it's been industrialized, it's more than 80% dependent on import. We have to have that mindset. We have to make awareness that we have the resources, we have the manpower, we have the concepts right here in order to facilitate producing those organic foods and bringing a natural source to our populations around the world. Based climates, definitely there are constraints, but as it has been presented here, those constraints have been can be solved or resolved, or at least tackled in a way where we can manage them. But the main point right now is gathering all these concepts and making an action plan and providing a project plan in order to be able to go forward.
Well, thank you very much. Louis,
it's Joan, sorry. I just want to say, I so agree we need a plan, because I function really well in accomplishments, and knowing this is the plan, this is what we've done, and then that's the way you can evaluate what has happened, what worked, what didn't work, what are other ideas. So sorry if I interrupted, but I guess it's my functionality more than anything, but since we have so many people, it makes it easy for everyone to see what has happened and to justify or re-strategize what needs to happen. So unfortunately, I have to run. I had put two hours in. I thought that was good, but I'll have to go in about 5 minutes. So I just want to say that this is so enlightening. And if we have a project plan, I'd be super happy.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I was a bit distracted. So Saleem Talbot, are you there, available? Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Well, yes, but your fan looks wonderful. We love the way it's going around and around in circles. But
I thought you would like my fan. Well,
where's the Truman?
We
want the Truman, so. Yeah, the Truman.
I'm afraid I don't have a cradle to rest my phone in before to hold it up. If it's more appropriate, then I'll do so.
No, well, as long as you just say hello, you can then just turn it off. But I did want to let everyone know that Bermuda is somewhere I've visited there in 2012, and I was very shocked to find that you're importing 98% of your food and 98% of your energy there in Bermuda. But I also am very much glad that you're here at Saleem, because as I understand it, anniversary coming up, and you are in fact the place there at the crossroads in Bermuda that may actually have an opportunity to have an example of this pirate pod or solar roof in Bermuda that can in fact feed the community and yourself. But let me shut up and let you introduce yourself, Saleem.
Okay. Greetings, everyone. I didn't prepare any type of presentation. I actually came to listen, to learn from all of your esteemed, I guess, presenters and so on. I joined a little bit late because I was waiting for someone to call me and then invite me as normal. That's fine. I just want to say that, I guess, first and foremost, I know that Andrew knows very well that the primary goal that I have is to unify people, to gather people together, and the tribes, the countries, people, to recognize the importance of human fraternity. And so, for example, back in, was that December 2019, myself as director of the Bermuda Islamic Cultural Center and the Emir of the center, I met with Bishop West, who's a Catholic priest, and we sat down and had talks and dialogue to see what we can do to bring our congregations together and to demonstrate on Bermuda, which is a very tiny place, but has everyone present from every country, every nationality, etc., to demonstrate that indeed we're going to work together as human beings to find common ground. So that was the idea, and we signed an agreement based on the agreement signed by Pope Francis and the Imam of Al-Azhar, and we replicated that model. And it's a document which is called the Document on Human Fraternity. I invite anyone who's interested to read the document. It's a wonderful document because it talks about humanity being one, yes, but people working together on economic projects, on social projects that are meaningful, and getting to know each other. Bermuda is that kind of place, and that's why we refer to it as a crossroads country. In the middle of the Atlantic. We don't have any our closest neighbor, because we're in the quote unquote north of the Atlantic, I want to say north of the Caribbean, West Indies. Most people, they figure we're just sort of in the cluster of the West Indian islands, our southern neighbors, but nowhere high up north. In fact, our closest neighbor of the people in the North Carolina. So we're actually on the 99% of the islands to our south, in that we have Black people, we have brown people, we have yellow people, we have white people, and we don't live in segregated neighborhoods. The country is too small. So we bump into each other regularly, all the time, I would say. And so we put together, for example, a small, tiny sort of, and I shared it with Andrew, and I think he sort of liked it. I guess it's called The Power of One. It wasn't too bad, was it? And I hope so. I invite you to do so. The Power of One is a very small clip, and it's talking about the goal of unifying people together, diverse, religious, and irreligious people, diverse racial and financial elements of society within a given country and around the world. And the objective is to achieve peace and social economic justice, of course. It's not a question of just having a nice conversation. We believe that people can work together if they can only get to know each other well, you see? Because in some societies, like America's a very big country, as an example, very often you will not find a Black person that even really knows a white person. They've seen white folks, for example, and maybe vice versa, but never worked with, didn't go to school with them in elementary or high school or in the university. Although there's, of course, maybe 10 or 15% that would be different from that. But my point is that it's important that people get to know each other, and that's our goal, and that is to unify people and to emphasize human fraternity. So here in Bermuda, we try to do that, for example, through our Crossroads football club. It's called Crossroads Warriors FC. It's a competitive team. We play in the Premier Division, and our team is diverse. I mean, we have recreational teams. We do very well. We've been in existence almost 25 years. So it's not a sort of one, it actually exists. And people are made to feel like a family, which is the idea that the human fraternity. It's enshrined in our mission statement from the very beginning 30 years ago. It's not something like today. It's a very popular sort of statement. But this organization was founded on the principle of human equality. So we have that. Our coaching staff, as soon as a person demonstrates these leadership aspects, then he's put to work right away. They can help with the coaching staff for the younger ones. So even age 16 from on up, they are part of the programs, because not everybody is going to become a competitive football player, but it doesn't matter because we can use it administratively and otherwise. And some who have the talent for coaches, they can do that. The parents, they're heavily involved, especially at the youth level, in the organization itself, on game day and in training sessions. And Andrew, you saw some of that last week with a small clip. There are tons of parents and children there simultaneously. And of course, the fans. The fans love the organization because it's based on this basic motto, which is knowledge, faith, and victory. And in terms on a social level, we operate on the basis of food security from the beginning, the halal food, healthy food. It's not a question of just giving people food, although in some cases, in desperate situations during the war, I'm sure anything would do, even if it was a spider or anything. But I'm saying, if in those extreme conditions, we provide healthy food for the people, because we believe that food can actually be your medicine. And I'm sure the people in the health field, they understand that. So we have a food bank during the COVID stages, especially the early stages. We were able to provide food for families in the neighborhood and throughout the island. Also, we have a feeding program once a week, minimally. We try to go and deliver food to our capacity to people who are actually needy, the elderly, and other people who are not in good economic situation. I guess Business-wise, definitely, we use the model of Islamic finance. That means that we don't charge people interest. We help with money, they pay it back, and they pay back the same amount they borrowed. It was just to help them out. We try to help people, whoever they are, regardless of religion, race, etc. But I'm saying if it's an economic project, then they profit share, but there's no interest. So that means there's no predatory relationship between the lender and the borrower, as an example. We have retail and wholesale business that's again operates on the same and even more detailed ethicals, which I won't take up your valuable time today. But other than that, we believe that technology should be used to educate people, just like you're doing in this forum, which is a great forum. And last but not least, because you probably, why is in this? Well, we do believe in the community gardens concept because, as one of your presenters said, sometimes when things go wrong, like with this coronavirus thing, the ships stop coming, the aircraft stop flying, so you better be able to somewhat be able to feed your people. And Bermuda, there's no reason why you can't feed the people because it's an island. We're surrounded by food, i.e. the fish and the other forms of food in the ocean, but you have to have the knowledge and the technology to be able to sustainably gather it and distribute it amongst the people. So aside from the fish, for example, we believe that vertical farming is because it's a very tiny country. So we don't have a lot of acreage that we can plow up and use to plant vegetables and so on. But the vertical farming makes it efficient and even perhaps profitable. And last but not least, schools, we funded an alternative school it was a pilot actually, in 2014. It was very successful. A small number of students, we took them in from age elementary school up to high school, about 16. I think the oldest student was about 17 years. And anyway, it was a very challenging curriculum. I say challenging. It was an invigorating curriculum because my own background is in physics and science and math. So we emphasize almost like that STEM sort of learning, but with a twist, because we also emphasize ethics and spiritual background. So it was science-based, but it was
the Saleem.
okay.
I believe the whole country, Bermuda doesn't have a university.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I mean, the Bermuda doesn't have a university, right?
No, that's true. We have a sort of, what do you call these things? It's like a college.
Bermuda College, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So actually, I had a very detailed meeting, with one of the lawyers, friend of Brother Andrew. And we actually developed a plan that, okay, we should definitely transform. We help everybody out, and it's a profit sharing kind of a scenario. And everybody can be held with zero interest. And so that kind of an economic model, we want to demonstrate in Bermuda to assure that, okay, economic vibrancy is possible with this model, and everybody can enjoy a very, very economically vibrant life in a small country like Bermuda. So those are the two projects which we can definitely work on.
Sure, I would love to collaborate with you on that. And anyone who knows me knows that I'd like. So I'd love to discuss with you at length, trying to implement something so that government will be convinced it's doable and it's workable.
Cricket also, which is a very popular game in
Yes,
Pakistan and England. And we can have a fantastic benchmark cricket team also, you know, which can win the
Pardon
World
me?
Cup.
Say that again?
I said, well, we can have a fantastic cricket team also because our Prime Minister was a benchmark cricketer who won the World Cup for Pakistan. Very good game, and I think it's a game which we should definitely promote. Everybody can play that game. So idea is this, that okay, we develop the...
Cricket and football are the number 1 and 2 sports in Bermuda.
Exactly.
But sailing is increasingly becoming important also. So if you have any people about that, this is good for the curriculum because physics can be taught very easily and readily with the sailing and with cricket and with football. That's why I love it.
Exactly.
It's applied science, you see?
Idea is exactly to make these sports
sister or brother organizations with respect to the sports, you see? So this is a very mechanism, in my view, to get things going because, again, unfortunately, many young people turn off of education very early, and it's not because they don't want to learn, no. It's because we, many of the teachers or the institutions, the governments, they're not talented enough to understand how to reach the
the Bando karate kind of thing, which I've learned from one of the Burmese, teacher. So I think that gives you a lot of control and, both physical as well as mental.
That's correct. That's correct. I studied Kung Fu when I was in college level, but
college? Okay.
I agree.
Right. Okay.
It's the same concept. In fact, I played soccer at my university many years ago. And one of the first things the quote unquote soccer coach told us, because I was on the team, he said, I don't care which martial art you take up, everyone must go and
education standard also, in addition to the climate smart food standard, which we are building.
I would love, I look forward to seeing some here because we have plenty of sun. As a matter of fact, in my I studied mechanical engineering in university, and my senior project, I did my senior project on solar energy technology because I was thinking of, and that wasn't yesterday, huh?
Wonderful.
But we had big storage problems at that time. Now it's a lot more developed, but they tell me it's still very expensive when you look at all of the costs. It's not so easy.
And I think Richard Nelson has solved all that problem because we have made
it be durable because in the Caribbean we have the salt air, and it deteriorates and attacks the materials
exactly
very rapidly. So it has to be the right one,
Exactly. In that particular environment, and I think it will survive that kind of an environment also, because people in the coastal cities would like to live near the sea, but this is one of the biggest problems that in the conventional construction, the building material, building deteriorates very fast.
That's
so
correct.
To
That's
really
correct.
have a sustainable buildings.
That's correct.
Which is weatherproof.
Yeah, I was talking to one man. Now, where was he? I don't think he's from. I think he was in Dubai. He's not from there, but he was working there. I was talking to him a few months ago, and he said, for example, the materials.
Yes. Yes, it often is. So my first question is, Saleem, I'm sorry I missed your presentation because my nurse stopped by for help. So where are you from? Where are you from?
Bermuda. I'm born and raised in Bermuda. I
I
attended
was born.
university in the United States, but
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. I missed that. So I was born in Jamaica, by the way.
Oh, okay.
You have built earthquakes in mind. The building materials had to sustain itself from earthquakes. In Jamaica, they have a lot of earthquakes and hurricanes as well. So do we have a solutions for that when we go to the Caribbean? And number two is the one thing that I don't see on our solution is a water strategy.
I don't know, you listening? Unique things about Bermuda is that all of the buildings historically held out of concrete block and limestone. The limestone coming from the earth, from Bermuda itself. And so we don't have any problems about any major damage whatsoever. The roads, they sometimes suffer over time because they use that asphalt covering, but you know, that cracks and then you repair it and so on. But we don't have earthquakes. The hurricanes, they come and go, but the worst they do is lift off some of the roofs on the island. That's true in the houses, but then they put on a very simple solution in terms of these what they call I guess you'd say limestone slats that you just put into place, remove the damaged ones, and you put other ones back. So it's true the planning department, for example, about everything when it comes to even I guess you could say aesthetic. Everything has to, and the optics are important. Can you still hear me? Because someone's making calls through here. Can you hear me still?
Yes, you can hear.
Sitting in that series, storm areas like that. We get hurricanes probably on average 1 or 2 a season, per year, in other words, maybe 3 at the most. But usually, very heavy downpours of heat, rain, and so on. I'm saying high winds, of course, but again, the houses are built very strongly here, very strongly. There are no wooden roofs or anything, wooden houses. It's not like that. So as long as the roofs are built similarly sturdy and they're fitted properly and things are tested, just like in a lab, and I'm sure, brother, they will concur. I don't think anyone will be so foolhardy as try to sell roofs that haven't been tested, and the environment that they're intended to go in. So I think we would do that, and you teach the students likewise. That's a science project, in my view. That's a science.
Brother
That's a potential
Saleem,
science
we have a good news for you that we have a seasteading institute. We can actually build the houses on the water. So, that is a project which is being done in Panama today. And, that technology is also available with us.
And then the ocean is right there, you see.
Okay, all right.
So we can try things,
I'd like to add some quick comment, concerning the question and also concerning Bermuda.
Right ahead.
One thing is that we already have someone promoting Parapod. It's another version. It's called Spark. So in Bermuda, and promote to school system. Because that's a very good education tool, right?
Okay.
Concerning Joan's question about water solution and earthquake, if you go to our website, parapod.com,
okay,
you'll learn everything to consider. This is the safest building that human being has ever conceived, right? But and unfortunately, we're not still using it. it's earthquake proof, you know. And I did aquaponics, so water solution, and you know, even, you know, evaporation. We can collect water, you know, distill water, you know, in this type
And
of
you're talking
structure.
about drinkable water or water?
Oh
just-
yes, oh yes,
Okay.
yeah. Well, that's
Okay.
too much to talk, but you know, for this
Okay.
session, right? But a
Well, the
lot
water has
can
to be-
be achieved. Yeah.
Okay. Again, I'm open to, you know, to listen to whatever you're speaking about. But as they say,
so
the proof is
smart.
in the pudding.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah.
try it. You know,
Yeah.
and also for this, for my, for the club that we have, which is called Crossroads, and we can probably try on a small scale, you know, a little small building, and to see how that works out down at the soccer pitch, the stadium, you see, just to try and see if it works out. Because we have a training ground, which is, and then we have the actual stadium ground where we play, and the stadium ground has a lot of room for development. We'd have to, of course, negotiate with, you know, some of the government people to, but if we can sort of put it down even as a almost like a mobile, how's it planted? If it could be quote unquote sold to them as almost the idea that is as a sort of scientific experiment, so to speak, if it can be placed and with a view that if they don't like it,
And then instantly he has the whole structure, you know, and because you want to test, you know, test.
Interesting enough,
right?
I actually have a container in my
Yeah,
backyard, and I have a son who's a welder. In fact, he welds underwater, and I have a brother who's also a welder. So it's not that hard to fabricate things.
Yeah, so make it portable is very doable, you know, very easy actually. It's lightweight. You can make it lightweight, you know, if you want.
Well, sounds excellent. And oh yeah, I think I've seen that. Maybe Corn or somebody wants to. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay,
There,
I'll
you know, a lot to watch, a lot to read.
So Andrew, if I could just close up with my questions. So I just look at the, thank you, Aubrey, for answering my question. So the go forward for next week. I agree with the Colonel that we need to do an action plan. So I don't know if you and Lloyd maybe want to talk about that. And a greenhouse and a chicken coop. Those are existing projects that these things can actually happen, and we can collect data for them for this project. So we're good to go like right away. So
yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Sounds
so what would be the next steps to do that? I guess would be that's my question, and I'll close my mouth for now. No speeches.
No, don't do that.
Well, Joan, what I like for you to do is take the lead from as we go along. So that was a guess, Joan.
So to be clear, you mean for Tanzania and Zimbabwe for my projects? You mean? I'm happy to do that. I'm more than happy to do that.
then that's the answer. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And yes.
I will do that, and I'm gonna start using your yes and yes and yes. So I'll have something for next week. Is that okay?
Or sooner.
Or sooner,
yeah. Sooner. Okay. Sooner is good. All right.
Now is better.
Done.
Now is better.
Done. Well, I won't promise today, but this week sometime.
Ball's in your court.
Thanks.
All right, we're approaching 3.5 hours. So if there's anyone that has not had a chance to introduce themselves, now's your chance. Come on down. I think that might mean you, Andre. I think you might be the only one that hasn't spoken.
I think also Warren hasn't spoken at all. I haven't heard from him.
Is he still here? Well, the
I
floor is
see his
open.
name.
Then that's likely he's here. Oh, there's a DKTVX, I don't know
Hi.
what, but anyone here is please
Hi.
welcome to introduce yourself.
Hi, it's Andra, and I guess I'm just with Lloyd, so I didn't really have much to say. So I'm just kind of following along and seeing maybe where I can help out. And I guess my thinking is I think we need a new type of economy to, motivate us to do some of the things that we need to do.
You're right
on a
on.
more
New economy.
So yeah, some that's with the current economy, not necessarily we need a complete change, but something that supports what we already have in a more sustainable way. So I like to see where this project goes. It'd be great to see how we can envision a better way of living and a way that uses, hopefully less energy, less resources,
For sure.
but also captures the things that we as humans value, like the connection, the ability to be in nature. So the ability to live sustainably and all of what that entails. That includes the education, that includes living on the planet with everyone else. So,
Yeah, I'll say.
Hard to envision a better way of living, but I think we have to, if we can put a demonstration that we can show the world that, hey, this works, you can see yourself living in it. I think that is a way that we can get a lot more traction.
Yes.
By using that as a demonstration site. But also we want to keep an eye on scalability, that whatever we build has the potential to scale.
Yes. Yeah.
So it can fit in multiple environments. So that's kind of all I want to say.
Great, Andre. Thank you so much.
Hi. I think I'm back on here. It's Richard, but it looks like a long number or something because I'm on my phone. So I'm on my phone, but I have been listening. I have been enjoying. It's been a long run, but it's been worth every minute. And yeah, we'll get going through the week, and we'll have a lot of good things to do next week.
Right. Okay, Corin Smith, you're the only one that hasn't spoken. Typically, you're in the background. Unless you like to say something, we're going to wrap it up. Okay, final call.
Still on mute.
His mic is now open.
And come with it.
Corin Smith.
Well, okay, then Lady Alicia Hamilton, I think you're still here. I see your icon there. So Lady Alicia Hamilton, if you have a final, this is the time to say it.
Okay, no, just thanks to everyone. Again, I agree with the last speaker that longer than I anticipated every minute. I think it was really essential that we all came together today to get everyone's perspectives and get clarity. And I'll be following up with Andrew on how we shape this into further expanding this on the platform, on a Better World type of channel where you can revisit things and also share and connect. Most importantly, connect to your respective websites. What I did understand and learn today that the trajectory that we're on is critical for a better world, as well as aligning with the Sustainable Development Goals, the Agenda AU Agenda 2063, and this idea of a like-minded synergy for the quadruple bottom line, looking at how what we do aligns with respect for people, the planet, as we look at a community type of collective economic and prosperity model. And I see all the elements are here. So there are many, in addition to the longer, more orientative type of session we had today, to really drill down into the specifics. And so rather than belabor it here, because we've already been on for a while, I'll follow up with Andrew, but I'm super excited about what we can do and what we will represent as we now make these master sponsors, advertisers, or However, we look at the backing financially as we prove out these concepts and show that we can, apply the models that we've come up with here in a way to make the world not only sustainable, but as Andrew always says, regenerative. So yeah, I'm glad to be here. And again, we'll follow up further on how we keep this moving, because it's critically important to be the change that we want to see and be and need. So thank you, Andrew, always with your vision. And thanks to all of you for allowing me to serve you in helping to shape it into something that can be expanded and a platform that can be, grown upon. A timeline of what is the objective first, second, and third, because we can't do everything at once. And I know we can figure that out with all the geniuses online. So have a blessed week, everyone. Look forward to next week. And I'll be, like I said, working with Andrew on some more specifics on structure as we move all this forward. Thank you.
Just a request to Lady Alicia that in your leadership, in collaboration with Heidi Little and Sheppy, who is not here today, I think we need to enroll 2 billion mothers and make them homeowners.
So again, this was very good. But I do think before we start, and it won't take long, I mean, we just need to have another session on what the rollout looks like. I would like to have some things at least understood in order before we start offering it to people without those questions answered. Like, for example, just as a preliminary, given the new insertions we discovered today, and I say discovered because some of us are hearing this for the first time, or maybe more in depth, or maybe reiterating what we may not have been clear on before, does any of that would happen today impact how we were moving forward today? That's a question I don't have the answer to. It would stand to reason with all of the new information that we may have to tweak things one way or another. I think that's going to take a whole lot of time, but I think it's a visit we should do before we start. And then they get confused and don't know what's going on, and messy. So I think visiting that would be good and healthy. Also making sure that we haven't missed things, like with our sister in South Africa, to make sure that we've addressed the variables. So when we do offer it to the mothers, that we are sure about the momentum moving forward. I love the model, especially this idea. We talked today about, for example, we talk about insertions, the idea that Judy was talking about in regards to canning and making what we grow, have it have a longer shelf life. What does that look like in the model? Also, Michael Rendler, for example, the educational piece, which I think is critically important, even if it's a program to introduce the concept for further enrollment in the course. And Michael, and I will reach, I don't know if you're still here, sorry, but I will reach out to you about what that looks like. But the educational piece is important because people need to understand what this means and how to integrate it into their life. So just those two things alone, off the top of my head, how does that change what the offering is to the mothers? That's here. But absolutely, it makes sense, and we have the platform to do it. I just want to make sure when we do that we've looked at all of the angles, making sure that we just get the momentum going, if that makes sense.
Well, yes.
So Lady Alicia, one separate meeting between Sheppy in South Africa, Heidi Little, and yourself, so we can actually iron out and answer all the questions which they have, so that we can get forward with agility again.
The Victory Gardens.
Victory Gardens.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, that Victory Garden model aligns us, beautifully with what we're doing with the mothers and with Schleppy's program. So I think, again, my overlying thought is that, okay, well, how does that change, or how does that modify anything that we're doing? The answer may be nothing, but I do think that there are some things that are relevant and that would make it sensible to integrate some of those things into what we're offering the mothers. Because in the educational program, piece is critically important too, unless it's already there. But it sounded like she had some nuances that could enhance what the offering is to the mothers.
Well, the great news is that what these weekly meetings are, in fact, a standalone. The meetings standalone. This is the conversation with Andrew Williams Jr. We're exploring this week as we go along. I do foresee us being able to have a more structured presentation, but the activities and projects that come out of this are separate from these weekly meetings themselves. So
Grateful for you, and thank you for all that you do to keep us moving forward.
okay, Joan, ball back in your court. You're about to say something. I interrupted you. Go right ahead.
Oh, no worries. Good interruption. So I just want to say, yeah, I like to be dragged in. So that's my first question answer. And the second one is I've been called worse than Judy, so it's all good. Yes. And thirdly, I really do think we have added components for the women. We will never displace something that's already exists. We just enhance or exists. So if somebody's offering something, we will do it. So just wanted to answer that. Thanks.
Otherwise, I want to participate. All only next. Also follow Saleem on the line. Let's after this. Pull up after this call.
Good.
Positively.
Okay.
Thank you very
Are you
much,
still gonna-
Andrew.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Happy loving.